최고!
Cool!
Hey everyone, it's Nux, and today I am back with another Sonic the Hedgehog video. And it's probably not the big one you guys are expecting because, of course, I need to make a review video on Sonic X Shadow Generations now that it is out. And I did have some plans to have some other videos in addition to that one out by now, but when we hit October, man, I just kept getting distracted by all the different games coming out, clearing off more of my backlog. Like, I'm not going to lie to y'all, I just wanted to take it easy, play some games, just focus on my IRL life. Like, so many things came up that just distracted me from getting back to the YouTube channel. Like, I don't make the YouTube channel a priority, I try to focus on my well-being these days. But now, I am back, not to do a review on Sonic X Shadow Generations just yet. Trust me, my thoughts on it are coming, and be ready for that. What I want to talk about first is Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings, which is obviously the promotional animation that is connected to it. And I had some decent faith in this animation because the Knuckles Frontiers promotional animation, for example, was just so good, and it's like one of the best pieces of Sonic media I've ever watched. But a part of me was a little worried because I think to, Sonic Superstars, because those promotional animations had stuff that really should have been in the final game when it came to its story. Like, I think the story of Sonic Superstars was really hurt from leaving stuff in the promotional animations, and a part of me was worried that maybe we'd come across another case like this with this animation. But in terms of this animation itself, whoo man, it was extremely good. Like, I don't know what else to say other than that the animation was extremely good, and I'll give y'all my rating at the very end. But first, let me break down and talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and all that stuff. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the general animation, and the animation of this entire thing was just amazing. Like, some people had concerns because it didn't seem like it was going to be fully 2D animated. It was going to be this weird kind of like 2D 3D-ish looking thing. I don't know. Apparently it was made in Blender. I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, this animation was just amazing in terms of its animation style, and that alone just really like makes it shine. But on top of just looking great, like just the overall movement of the characters and the way that they look is really good. Like, there's no character that I think looked off or had like a bad version of themselves. Just everything looked good, and just in terms of the way that this animation looked, like the way that characters moved during fights and stuff like that was very fluid, and overall I really enjoyed it just for that fact. But speaking of fights, good lord, like the battle choreography of this animation, like I think it's like some of the best that this franchise has ever seen, because obviously Sonic is a very action-focused series. Like, some people argue that it's not, but nah, like, look at Super Sonic and tell me that's not something inspired by friggin' Dragon Ball. Like, Sega can deny it all they want, but the action element of this franchise is a big part of it, and it really feels like the franchise is embracing it more and more lately, and no other scene makes that clear than the Shadow versus ML fight. Like, the fight between Shadow and ML was crazy. Like, the amount of details just in that one sequence was so good, not just in the fact that they were obviously moving really fast and had crazy good footwork, but they had some of their unique abilities too. Like, they obviously throw some spin dashes in there, and if you notice, as Shadow is fighting ML more and more, ML is recognizing his fighting power, which obviously shows his 𝗂𝗄𝗄 ability, and I just think that that is incredible. Like, just the fact that this animation is good in terms of the fighting and movement is crazy. Like, even the egg pawns, freaking the Eggman robots, the basic Eggman robots look cool in their movements. And like, what? How do you make egg pawns look badass? That is crazy to me. Like, yeah, just the general fluidity of this animation is so good. But the next thing I want to talk about is how well that this animation respects the overall lore of this franchise, because of course, it mainly focuses around the backstory of Shadow, and the backstory of Shadow is something that I've felt mixed with over the years, because I think the original story was very well told. Of course, it's one of the best stories in the franchise, but then I felt like that they were starting to muddy it when they brought in the freaking aliens, the amnesia plotline, and stuff like that. Like, the more that they started adding to Shadow's backstory, the more that I felt like I was getting disconnected to Shadow as a character. But overall, I think it ended well with him, letting go of the past and then moving onwards to respecting Maria's wish of protecting the planet, which a story like Sonic 06 actually does a good job of portraying that. Like, I know Sonic 06 is a very, yeah, we know the thing with Sonic 06. But in terms of Shadow as a character, that game did a good job of continuing his story, and then we know what happened from there. His character basically fell off a cliff because they really wanted to focus in on the fact that, oh, he's this rival to Sonic, this dark, edgy version of him, so we need to make sure he's fighting Sonic, no matter if it makes sense to the plot or not. And because of that, they kind of wrote him to almost feeling like an evil version of himself at points. And apparently in an interview, Iizuka said that he would be interested in doing a story of Shadow being evil. Bro, that's basically what he was after 06. Like, he was just so mischaracterized that he felt like an evil version of Shadow the Hedgehog. But between this animation and spoilers with some of the stuff that we see in Sonic and Shadow Generations, it really does a good job of turning me back to loving Shadow the Hedgehog as a character. And not just Shadow the Hedgehog as a character, but all the elements to his backstory and just his overall character, it blends together extremely well. Like, again, I've always felt mixed on the Black Arms because I just felt like the idea that Shadow is this alien and like aliens come out of nowhere and just have a part of his backstory, I just always felt very mixed about it. But the way that this animation handles it actually makes it very interesting, because it really beats in the fact that Shadow, like, not even Shadow is really like okay with the fact that he was made from this alien DNA. Like, it really beats in the fact that he's an artificial hedgehog compared to Sonic, who is obviously a natural hedgehog. And I did think it was a bit weird that Shadow knows the fact that he was made from alien DNA, but it makes sense that he would kind of forget later down the line because of the whole amnesia plotline, so that makes that a little more useful and interesting. So yeah, like, the way that this animation blends together elements of Shadow's backstory is just amazing. And of course, we can't talk about Shadow's backstory without talking about Maria, and his relationship with Maria is very well portrayed in this animation. Like, it's very clear how much he cared about her when she was alive. And again, this animation holds back nothing. It even shows, like, it obviously doesn't show, but like, it alludes to what her ultimate fate is and what the fate of Gerald is. And it really leans into like the fact that Shadow's backstory is a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that led him on this path to becoming a protector of the Earth, or whatever planet it is. I don't even freaking know anymore, but yeah. Like, just so good in terms of Shadow as a character. Like, he's not overly evil and doing stuff for no reason. Everything that he does in this animation, he does for a reason. Like, even when he's fighting a G.U.N soldier, which, ooh, wait until I get into G.U.N, but even when he's fighting a G.U.N soldier, he saves that soldier after the battle. And it's just, like, again, it's just so satisfying to see that they understand Shadow the Hedgehog's character again. And getting to the G.U.N, like, it's just so satisfying that they're acknowledging that humans other than Eggman exist, and just acknowledge the general, like, world building that the 2000s games were establishing and trying to build for this universe. Because we know the deal. Like, in the 2010 era, they were trying their absolute best to bury that stuff. Like, even when the 2010 era was like at the tail end and it was kind of transitioning into this period now where they're like respecting the 2000s era again, it really did feel like they did not want you to know that humans other than Eggman exist in this freaking world. Like, they should have had at least some part in a game like Forces, but no, they mainly focused on these bland, weird-looking info characters, and it just didn't make the world of Sonic the Hedgehog feel alive. But this animation, it just feels so alive. Like, the fact that we can see a regular guy trying his absolute hardest to go against Shadow, but failing miserably. Like, that's just something that's so fascinating to me. And of course, another angle that we see this through is the fact that they bring back the freaking G.U.N commander, and they actually make me like sympathize with him. Like, obviously it makes sense that he would think Shadow is like this weird, freakish product of nature because of the fact that he saw the fact that he was being made with alien DNA while he was aboard the Ark. And then, of course, he ties that to Maria's death and what happened, which makes sense because in a way, he kind of was the reason that happened. The fact that Gerald was doing all this shady stuff with aliens and having superpowered hedgehogs, it makes sense that G.U.N would kind of do what they did. But it makes sense in a way that he would tie that to Shadow. But now they've gotten past it. Like, obviously, at the end of Shadow the Hedgehog, he let go of his hatred of Shadow. And even in the hidden dialogue, you know, you get hints of how much he's let go of his hatred of Shadow, which that wants to put me on a whole side tangent with Shadow the Hedgehog. Like, that game, bro. Like, some of the hidden dialogue in that game is stuff that really should have been in the main story, man, instead of all that cringe stuff with but yeah, like, just the fact that this animation is just taking elements from across the entire franchise and just being fully confident with it and weaving it together in a way that just feels so seamless. Man, it is just amazing to see that again. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, we see the moon actually with a hole blown in it from the events of Sonic Adventure 2, which, while it was cool to see that, I think that was a really cool detail that they put in there. It kind of is like, yeah, it feels a little too late to address that because of how many games we've seen the moon perfectly fine. Like, I don't know, they can make all the excuses that, oh, we only saw the good side of the moon, all they want, but nah. We definitely should have seen something like that in the games a little sooner. But yeah, it's just so satisfying to actually see the animation acknowledge that, because it just, again, shows how much this animation respects the history of Shadow the Hedgehog as a character. But oh man, nothing shows that off more than how they handle Team Dark as a whole. Like, it's just so satisfying to see that they didn't just respect Shadow as a character and all the stuff around his backstory, but Rouge and Omega, man, like, they were amazing in this animation. They had some really good banter with Shadow as they're raiding both the Eggman base and the G.U.N facility. They get some really cool moments that really show off their skills and abilities well. Like, man, oh man, like, the way that this animation handles them is so good, and it really reminds me why Team Dark are some of my favorite characters in the Sonic franchise. Like, if y'all remember my Sonic character ranking video, some of my friends were getting on me like, why do you have Rouge so high up, bro? That's sus. But she's just a really legitimately good character. She has some great banter with other characters, and this animation shows that off. And even at the very end, you know, when Shadow gets the ship and he's making his way towards the Ark, even the commander, again, gets a good moment where he's talking with Rouge, talking about how y'all destroyed a lot of G.U.N assets and stuff like that. Like, y'all could have just talked to me. And it's like, yeah, but Shadow kind of does his own things. And you know the only person who could talk to him. And it just leads into this moment where you see the G.U.N commander, like, just genuinely feel bad for everything that happened between them. Like, it's just so good to see this animation just write these characters in a way that just feels real. After so many games where sometimes I just feel like the dialogue has just been so artificial. But yeah, overall, just the animation was amazing. The only thing that bugs me about it is there's this weird inconsistency between Shadow's relationship with Gun. Like, is Shadow an agent of Gun still, or is he kind of like a freelancer? In the case of this animation, it kind of leads into the fact that he's more like a freelancer of Gun. Like, he doesn't exactly work for G.U.N. He kind of just does his own thing. He kind of takes something from them when he needs it. But then in the spoilers for Sonic X Shadow Generations, because this is the opening of the game. It's nothing too major, but I kind of need to bring this up for my point. But in the opening of that game, he kind of says more so that he came to the Ark because G.U.N detected something, more so than the fact that he detected something. So this animation does have a bit of inconsistency with the final Shadow Generations game. So that's the one flaw that I would say is a factor in terms of my final rating. But overall, everything else around it is just so amazing. Like the fact that we see Shadow and Maria's relationship, the fact that we see the condition that was affecting Maria and basically the entire reason why Shadow was made. The fact that all the other characters like the G.U.N commander, Team Dark, even freaking Egg Pawns, they look cool and have moments that fit their characters and stuff like that. Overall, this animation was an S tier for me. Like, obviously I don't think it's imperfect because of the whole weird Shadow being a part of Gun, not being a part of Gun thing, but overall this animation was great. And oh yeah, the ending theme, bro. That's one more thing I forgot to bring up. The ending theme is amazing. They need to freaking release it. I thought it was going to be in Shadow Generations, but spoilers, it's not. So I don't know if they're going to ever release it on its own, but I hope they do, because that ending theme to the Dark Beginnings animation was amazing. But yeah, overall, Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings was a really good animation. And for once, I don't think it's something that I feel like should have been a part of the game that it was tied to. I just think that it's a nice thing that complements the game that it's connected to, even with the weird lore inconsistency. But yeah, that's pretty much all of my thoughts when it comes to Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings. Stay tuned for my thoughts on the actual game itself, because that is still coming. But man, I definitely have to do that with a script, because I have a lot to say with that game, man. I have so much to say, but stay tuned, y'all. If you've made it to this point of the video, thank you for watching all the way until the end. What are your thoughts on the animation? You know, does this make you want a full Sonic anime or some other anime project really, really bad like me? Let me know in the comments down below. And be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new to it, and follow my additional social media in the description, including my newly made Blue Sky. Yeah, I made a Blue Sky just in case anything goes up with Twitter or X or whatever the heck it's called. In case anything goes wrong with that, I made a Blue Sky just in case, so check that out. All in the description for more content and updates. This has been Nux, and I'm out. Peace.